traditions in 19th century burial, and you see it in many, many cemeteries, especially laid out then, and it's a Methodist thing also, is that all the graves face due east. And you'll see this in the older sections of Union Cemetery also in Sayville. And that is because when Christ comes from the east and the dead rise from the grave, they will be facing Christ. So if you look here, we were talking inside about the burial of it, making it look like a bed. This is a child's grave. This is little Sarah Nicoll. And she is the child of William Nicoll, who was buried here, and his wife, Sarah Greenlee. They are examples of entombments. Basically, the slab is over, and this is a tomb set in the ground. Again, another 18th and 19th century standard burial type ground entombment.
Okay, so we see cement or concrete on the side. Does that mean that right underneath this slab?
Underneath the slab there is now, whether that was filled in or not, we don't know. I mean, it's basically an in-ground entombment. So the slabs were placed over it.
Not a casket.
There's a casket. Well, I would say they were wealthy enough to have a casket, so yes. So there is some sort of casket on most of these because they were well off.
And so was there like a cement tomb?
There was probably brick, and that later on they went ahead brick. And if you look down, you can see marble. They probably did that later on to seal it a little better. In modern times, there was a lot over the years. Maintenance in graveyards has changed greatly, and this is for the age of the graveyard and all the difficulties that this congregation has, is a very well maintained property.
Now, was an entombment a wealthy man's option?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a wealthy person, and it allowed you possibly to put somebody else in there and so forth, which we do today with the crypts and so forth. It's a version of that. You can see the development of the idea of burial and all in this cemetery by seeing some of the tombs, some of the graves over there with the head and foot stone. Here you see entombment, and here, as later graves go, you see more modern types of funeral art. When we get up in the front, we're going to see some additional head and foot stone graves. We'll also have one of what is actually fairly rare, though they last a long time, what they call white bronze. It's actually zinc monuments, which were sold as things that would last forever, and they do. They actually have a long lifespan. Again, we have a lot of very, in a small space, a whole bit of grave history. And next to the church is where the oldest graves are, and they are tombstones. And so we'll take a quick look at that in a few minutes. And of course the labyrinth, which is something the church congregation has set up, and people come here and think as they walk through the maze. And this is a traditional thing that is found in English churches and was brought here. As I mentioned earlier, this is an example of what they call white bronze tomb architecture. It really is a zinc casting. They were quite popular in the mid to late 19th century in that they would stand up very well to weather, where if you look at some of the marble and some of the sandstone would start coming apart. Marble itself would weather in the with the rain and so forth. This is before granite became popular in the late 19th century. So this was an example of that type of funerary art. This is the headstone of Sergeant John H. Connetquot, and it also has his brother, we believe it's his brother, J. Chapman. We know a lot about He was at the Third Battle of Winchester, Virginia. He was eventually would die from wounds received there. He was a sergeant in the 131st New York Infantry, which was one of the four what they call metropolitan regiments. What they did was they would recruit people from the island and other places for the senior positions in the regiment, and then they would clean out the New York City jails for the privates. This is why they were sent to service in the Gulf. They were way down in New Orleans because they figured if they sent the regiment originally to a place that would be near enough to trains to get back to New York, most of the privates would leave. They've had some very hard service down at the Battle of Port Hudson. He was not there for that because he was stationed at the time in Baton Rouge as part of the Quartermaster's Corps. When they move up to the Army in the Valley, they originally came to Petersburg. They were sent to the Valley because of the issues there in the Valley. And at the Battle of Third Winchester, he was at what they call Opequan Creek, or Opequan, depending on how you pronounce it. He was killed there. And he may not be buried here. This may be a memorial stone.